No. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight. My name is Ellen Minsner. I'm the Director of Para High Performance for USRowing, and I'm joined by Brett Gorman, who is our Director of Pathways. Actually, I'm not sure your exact new title, but you'll learn a little bit more.
Director of
High Performance Pathways. Okay, great.
Pathways, yes.
Great. So Brett will be joining us as tech support for this. Brett has run already a number of webinars on pathways specific to other segments of our population. This one is specific for para athletes who are seeking a pathway onto national team and high performance camps. And that's what we'll be talking about predominantly tonight. So first, a short overview of pathways and why all that's important. So if you could just advance to the next slide, Brett. So we're just going to give a very brief overview of the pathways. Many of you have heard me talk about the Paralympic pathway before. We're now sort of encompassing it under a more broader umbrella so that we all can be part of that same pathway program, even though there are distinct goals and interests among the different subgroups. So we'll go over that briefly. We'll talk about why that's important to us and to USRowing and to the para program specifically. We'll talk about the camps coming up for this year for para in terms of talent ID and development. We'll talk about next steps, about what you'll need to do to become part of our Pathways program, and then we'll do Q&A at the end. We will also take Q&A during, and if that seems like a good time to stop and take some questions, we will be monitoring the chat. So go ahead and drop questions in the chat. And we'll get to them as we can, or we can address anything that's left at the Q&A section at the end. Does that sound okay, Brett?
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll monitor and I'll stop you if something pops up.
Okay, sounds good. So we can go on to the next slide. If you don't know Yossi, he is our Chief High Performance Officer for all U.S. athletes. And what that means is essentially we're just trying to give a broader sense of how we think about our high performance pathways, all of them leading in the same direction and under the same oversight so that there's consistency of messaging, consistency of training methodology, and consistency of technique, and that we're all working together toward the same goals. So next slide. So the mission of the Pathways is to provide emerging athletes with a foundation and routes to international achievement and personal growth through transparency, collaboration, and education. And again, that's similar to how we're working with all of the Pathways programs, U19, U23, Para, etc. Next slide. So this is Pathways in action. You might recognize our guy, Andrew Mangan. He's a PR1 single sculler. And this is what we're going to be talking about, what the pathway means to you. So we can go right to the next slide here. Ooh, how did that get in there?
I don't know. It's going backwards. Excuse me. Sorry, everybody. There we go.
Next one. Okay. So you'll hear more specifically about what this means. I think we actually, can you go back one? I think, yeah, there we go. So we're trying to have all the athletes be part of the same system. Why is that important? We want to have reliable information, up-to-date information on all of our athletes that are part of the pathway. We want to have uniform ways of identifying and assessing talent and assessing where an athlete might be along their pathway. And we want to have data-driven development. Now, what does that mean? If you've been on any of my coaching calls or other webinars, we want to make good data-driven decisions. And with para, we have very little data. And so it's really important that as we look at an age group of athletes, for example, that we understand what those characteristics are of a typical athlete in that stage. We want to have the same for para. And we haven't had that really in recent years much at all. So data is everything from erg scores to competitive records to height, weight, wingspan, all of these characteristics that we want to be tracking over time. More importantly, to identify trends and also to identify where we might need to pay attention within our system. So that's why I'm excited about having this be part of a broader system of everything from registration to how we gather erg scores, etc. Am I missing anything there, Brett, on that?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head, Ellen. And really, it's about not recreating the wheel every year or every 4 years. It's, creating repeatable systems. I think we'll talk about the member profile, the athlete profile, on where we're going to be storing data. Another example of long-term athlete tracking, something that Yosi is really utilizing, is the lactate step test, which I know we're starting to use at every level. I'm starting to implement it with U19s and U23, and the goal being to get as many data points on athletes over time as possible. And that's what we're trying to do over the long haul.
Great. Okay, next slide. And then what that means for you is as we do this, we get better planning, setting our camp dates earlier. And that's really true for para. We're about 3 months ahead of where we were last year, and we're way ahead of where we've been in years prior. So once we have these camps more institutionalized, I'll just say, they'll be much clearer and athletes will know the schedule and all those details earlier. We're trying to make sure all of our information gets communicated across multiple channels, social media, webinars, informational sessions, coaching calls, lots of ways to get the word out about what we're trying to do specific to para, but that's true across all of the pathway programs. And then also we want like no surprises, or I guess that's the end goal. And we'll start with shooting for as few surprises as possible for this year. But I think we've got a good plan for para moving forward, even though it is a Paralympic year. So most of the attention of the high performance coaches and myself will be on the games preparation. But we are trying to make sure that we are ready to hit the ground running in 2025 with a really great lead up to LA 2028. Next slide. And again, a few communication channels. We obviously are having stakeholder webinars, and Brett, I think we've got actually another one this week, don't we? You have a
tomorrow. Yeah, we're doing a double.
Okay, tomorrow.
But that has
U23.
has a para slide in it as it's part of the pathway. Yep, and yeah,
great. And again, national team best practices. We mentioned lactate testing, consistent erg testing over time. And then the launch, which is our new learning and development platform. There'll be courses specific for para coaches coming online, and any number of ways to build your professional resume for the coaches side, but also for athletes as well.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. We're moving all of our educational materials onto the launch. That includes our level 1, our level 2, and the level 3 program. Actually, our current level 3 cohort is already working on the launch. So the goal is to have all of our education in one platform.
Great, awesome. And again, more of what this means for you. Hopefully you've heard from us, 365 year-round engagement. That means that our staff is working round the clock on our talent ID and our pipeline, even as we are preparing for World Championships or Paralympic Games. We want to give athletes as many entry points into our system as possible. And we want to identify clear roles and responsibilities for coaches along the way. And I will mention, just a plug, we have posted for development camp coaches. This webinar is mainly for athletes and their coaches to understand that, but we're still accepting applications. We'll be reviewing those. We've gotten some great applications in already. And that really also helps build our system of coaches who are fully understand the unique aspect of the para pathway. But we have more opportunities for coaches coming on board in the next year and two.
And Ellen,
okay.
I'm not sure if that was your internet or my internet. I think it was mine, but it sounded like you got a little garbled there. But just to be clear, so it's posted now, the dev camp coach opportunities. And
Yep.
when is that going to close? When are you going to stop expecting?
We're going to start reviewing applications like next week. We hope to make decisions early March, and that's when we want to begin looking at the candidates for these development camps, because those coaches will be involved in reviewing and assessing the athletes who are interested in attending the development camp.
Great. Yeah, I know I'm getting that question a lot for the jobs we've posted for U19s and U23. So awesome.
Great. Okay, next slide. So
direct Yosi quotes. These are some direct Yosi quotes.
Yeah, no, and I do think it's very important for para rowing. America is unique in its size geographically, and that has been at times a bit of a challenge with para rowing, because the para rowing network of clubs, recreational clubs and high performance clubs, you know, is not it's not as readily available as a traditional club, but we still want to make sure we bring everyone through the process of long-term development, small boat rowing and sculling. And for me, a big focus of development will be programs that are specifically for PR1 and PR2. Now, that's not to say that we're not going to be inclusive of PR3 in these camps that are coming up, but I do want to remind people that the PR3 are also suitable to go through the typical U19 and U23, formerly ODP camps, but these pathway programs, that is where we identify top PR3 talent as well. So the PR3 just have the option of sort of floating between two worlds. They can compete as a junior during their season, but still be identified for future para opportunities. So there's no real need to choose one way or the other. If you're a PR3, you don't have to choose between your current program or whether you want to go to a U19 or a U23 or a para camp. You can kind of dictate when you want to be participating in both. Those never have to be mutually exclusive, I guess is my point. So developing that pipeline is really important for para because there really isn't any corollary there. There's no U19 for PR1 and PR2. There's no U19 or U23 world championships specific for para yet, but we'll work on that. But we can go to the next slide. So upcoming 24 camps. Go ahead, next slide. This one, Brett may explain a little bit better than I will, but new for this year, we want people to use their member portal within USRowing. There'll be a specific section for your athlete profile, and that's going to be the main way that we gather all applications for any number of our camps that are coming up. So that's for U19, U23, and para. You can find it on the member portal. There will be some specific questions that will ask you related to your disability status and whether you want to be considered for any of these upcoming para camps. And that will essentially just flag that application to come over to my side of the high performance pathway program. And then we'll sort of evaluate from there. Brett, do you want to add anything more to that?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're talking about with the centralized data storage. I mean, historically, what happens with athletes for all camps is you're filling out a form where we're going to ask you for height, weight, all of your athlete metrics, all of your current erg data. Something that frequently happens, at least I know at the U19, U23 level, someone will fill out an application, say in January. Let's say the deadline's in March, and then in March, they're like, oh, I have a new 2K. Should I fill out the application all over again? This is going to eliminate that and get us out of spreadsheet hell, where every year we're having a form hell, like asking people to fill out 5 different forms with the exact very similar information. So when you log into your member, your athlete logs in to their member profile at usrowing.org and you go to individual membership, member number, password, there's a section that says edit profile. And within there is an athlete profile section that has the questions that Ellen was describing that will signify para eligibility, but then all of your metrics, height and weight. And what's beautiful about this is the application portion will be embedded in there for every specific camp, and that will only ask the questions for that camp. So for the para dev camp that Ellen's going to be talking about, the application for that will only ask questions relevant to that camp. And the data that we need for the athlete metrics, height, weight, erg score, all of that good stuff will just be pulled from the member portal. And all you have to do is keep that up to date. So you can fill out the application as soon as it's ready, and then you can update data up until that deadline. So it really makes things a lot simpler. I think there's going to be a little bit of a pain point because it's a new system for the next year or so. But once people get used to going in there, it's going to make things so much easier.
Great. Next slide then. So with the camps that are coming up online, there will be a fee associated with the camps. However, we have a great opportunity with the United We Row. We'll go back, stay on that scholarship slide just for a second. Go back.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I got advanced. There we go.
That is okay. So where an athlete can apply, the scholarship is, I think, also embedded in that member portal, so that if as you fill out that application, if you want to be considered for financial aid, there's a whole review process for those that do request the scholarship to these camps, and will be considered kind of on a case-by-case basis. Is that correct, Brett?
Yes, and actually, so the way in every application, so every embedded application for the para camp, for U19 camp, U23 camp, the last couple questions are you requesting scholarship for this? And it will then take you to the scholarship link. Some of the things we ask for a personal statement. We ask for, household income. We ask for extenuating circumstances, like describe, yes, it might be $200,000, but there might be 5 kids and 4 are in college, which we all know how much that costs. So we do take all of that into account, and our community engagement team evaluates those applications and makes recommendations for scholarship allocations. And coaches are a part of that too, but community engagement will be running that process.
Great. Okay, next. So the pathway system, just a couple of comments here. First, these 4 items are what I would consider part of the actual pathways camp system or pathways program for para. These are not the only opportunities to be part of a para or an adaptive camp, but I'll run through these, and I'll tell you at least 2 more that we have coming online soon that are not necessarily part of the national team high performance pathway, but they are going to be great opportunities that we want to be able to promote as well. And those will be coming up later. But so the sort of main components we have here are the talent ID days. We have confirmed March 24th in Boston at CRI as our first para talent ID day. We expect at least 2 or 3 others to come online in the next couple of months, but anywhere between now and say May, the talent ID days will be run in a very similar, if not exactly the same format as the U19 talent ID days, which are land-based. We really don't have an expectation to get on the water, because we want to make sure we spend enough time on reviewing equipment, specifically PR1 and PR2 setups, and make sure the athletes have a good and productive setup. We want to be reviewing ergometer assessments. So there'll be ergometer assessments there. There'll be a technical component to it, and some basic overview of how we want to be thinking on what the athlete's individual plan from these talent ID days will be. So there is not an expectation that we'd get on the water, but it is a solid half a day, usually 9 to 1 or 9:30 to 1:30. And that will be pretty encompassing. That's the model we used last year at CRI and at San Diego State. Their adaptive fitness center ran one for us, and a couple of other places. So it's a similar format. That's what you can expect. And we'll announce the others as soon as they come online. The Para Development Camp, which is the focus of this webinar, that's going to be in July 29th to August 4th. That camp encompasses 5 or 6 days of training plus racing at Canadian Henley at the end. That's going to be a very exciting thing. We've done it a couple of years in a row out of CRI, but we're going to host that one. Right now it's planned for South Niagara, just working through a few final details there. So the camp will be there, and we'll go to Canadian Henley for the weekend para racing. The Canadian Henley races are just that final only format, Saturday and Sunday. So we'll have that whole training week where everyone else is at the venue at St. Catharines. We'll be at South Niagara, which is not that far. We're training there and taking our boats up just for that race weekend. The other opportunity is for those that have been in our system and did not make a Paralympic selection right now. There'll be US trials for the World Championships, which is going to be held also in St. Catharines later this summer. But the trials for that will be July 5th to 7th and down in Mercer, West Windsor, New Jersey. And that will be specific for the non-Paralympic events. That's the PR2 men and women's single and the PR3 men and women's pairs. Those are the 4 non-Paralympic events that are held at the World Championships. The last thing which we have decided to formalize into our program is a strength and conditioning camp, and that will be in November. We held our first one in November this past year at Lake Placid, and it was a huge success. we didn't go on the water once, and we didn't miss going on the water. That's how much we really need to focus on this component of athlete development for para, is the strength and conditioning component. And that was really exciting. And that one was fixed seat only. That one was specific to PR1 and PR2. We'll see how we want to open it up in the coming years. But that camp will be essentially the kickoff of the coming year's training. So it's not just strength and conditioning assessment. It will also be physiological, lactate testing, VO2 max, et cetera. So it's for athletes who intend to be part of our pipeline for 2025 through 2028. And it will really be a great baseline for them to go home to their home training clubs with a great plan, knowing what they need to work on for strength and conditioning and physiological development. So I'm really excited about these components that we have here. Let's not advance the slide right now, because I will just mention the two other para camps, if you will, that we have online that USRowing will be putting out more information about. They're not part of the pathway system. And some of you may have heard of it before. We did a mini camp in front of the Beata, and we're definitely doing that again. That was a huge success. We like to take these mini camps as well as the talent ID days as coach education as well. So that camp was a huge success, not only to work with athletes who were getting ready to compete at Beata, but also bringing in new coaches as a workshop for them to see how we run our camps and how they all work. So we're definitely doing that one again. And I think Beata has moved to September. So that camp is tentatively scheduled for September 11th and 12th, the days leading up to the Beata. And the other one coming online, I don't even know if I should say the location yet, but we'll have another sort of fall head racing camp coming up in early October. And that one will be really exciting. And that one is also going to be coach education as well as sort of para development. And we're working in partnership with one of our other high performance clubs there. So more information on that. So this is just to say, these are not the only 4 opportunities you can have to be involved in a para camp situation. There'll be a couple of other things that are run more from our domestic program side. Okay, next slide. So parent talent ID days, the target audience. Just keep in mind, these will be listed among the other talent ID days, which are generally U19. So don't worry. For para, we're not really age restricted. We are looking for people that still have, a good quad cycle in front of them to prepare for future national team. But we're not age restricting these. So these talent ID days for para are not restricted just to U19. We do want to focus a little bit more on PR1 and PR2. That is not to say that we won't focus on PR3, but as I mentioned earlier, PR3 have the opportunity to attend any number of the other U19 talent ID days. And generally speaking, the para athletes that have come, the PR3 athletes that have come to our program from the ODP program or these now Pathways program are generally have come up through the non-para ranks. So ODP camps in the past, U19 programs in the past. So the PR3, again, have a few more opportunities where they can go and participate in talent ID. The focus of the camp is we want to try and, that is open to anyone. You don't have to be classified to come to a para talent ID day. We want to help you be successful in your program, whether you end up making a national team or not, it's no problem. We want to help you learn to become a better racer. So we're going to increase the competitive level of domestic para events. That's for local and regional regattas. Everyone wants their events to be full and well subscribed, and we want to make sure you have the tools that you need to become a better racer. We also want to share the Pathways mission more and more in as many ways as possible. So learning about long-term athlete development and how we implement that on the para side is very important to us. Para athlete and coach education, we are learning as we go. We will be rolling out some results of our SEAT study that we did last year, and some very basic things that clubs can do within their own environments to help better set up Peer 1 or Peer 2 athletes. I think that's really, really exciting. And we will do ergometer assessments, and we will send people home with certain equipment recommendations or different setups. So Para-Talent ID Day, a very broad, all-comer type of focus. We have details on that one in Boston. That will be, actually, I didn't put the time in there. It's March 24th, 2024. It's going to be 9:30 to 1:30 at CRI. We'll post other locations in that same area of the website and on Regatta Central. It would be listed. Brett, is it listed on Regatta Central as well, or the main place they would see those updates is on USRowing?
The main place will be USRowing, and then I know we're also sending out emails ahead of time for each camp. 3 days, 2 to 3 days ahead. There's a camp email that goes out to all registrants with specific details.
Great.
And to help, because we know the website is limiting. It's hard to find stuff sometimes. So
Okay.
once we get close to the camp, we send out updates, especially if we have to make any adjustments. And then there's significant follow up for every ID camp as well.
Great. All right. Perfect. Okay. Next slide. Okay, para-development camp. I think that's, I know of the people that have told me they were going to register today. I think this is kind of the main one people are looking to find out about. We want to have prior competitive rowing experience to come to the development camp. You will need to be classified as Peer 1, Peer 2, or Peer 3 before you come to that camp. And why is that important? It's important because we want to make sure that as we bring an athlete into our program and get them excited about our pathway, we want to make sure that they're actually eligible for future para events at the national team level, because that would be really disappointing for the athlete if they came through our system, were highly successful, and then found out that they were not eligible. So it does take time to be classified. It's about 45 days. But this camp is in July, so there should be no problem between the application process. And you can get classified at any time then, but it does take about 45 days. We want to make sure people know that in order to actually attend the para development camp, we want to be sure that you're fully eligible, and that means go through the classification process. Target age range, 18 to 30, but we probably will take some younger athletes at this camp, and we may take some older athletes. So that's just a bit of a target range. Again, we are looking for athletes who will have enough training and competitive years ahead of them that they would be able to be thinking about LA 2028 as a realistic goal for them. We list some ERG scores there. They're generally targets. We understand that we actually have a lot of athletes come to us from crossover sports that may or may not have a lot of experience with the ergometer, but have still a very promising athletic background. So these are just targets. I don't want people to panic if they don't hit these targets, but that is the general range we'd be looking for each of the categories. And at the development camp, we will be limiting it to 12 athletes, mainly because the goal would be 2 men, 2 women of each of those 3 categories. That will make a really robust camp. That will help us put together the mixed boats for competitive experience at Canadian Henley, and help you figure out who some potential partners might be in the future for some of these para events. And we also know that when we begin working with a development athlete in a para camp setting, once we get beyond 10 or 12 athletes, it becomes a less valuable experience overall, because we do want to do a really deep dive on athlete equipment, athlete setups, and how to match people who have never rowed before in some of these para categories. So we want to make sure that in a short amount of time, everyone gets a high quality amount of attention and high quality coaching there. The focus is going to be small boat training and racing, mainly singles and doubles, and that is true even for PR3. And obviously looking at athletes who may be part of our selection level events for future years.
Ellen,
the camp will be July 29th to August 4th. Oh, do we have a question?
You finish. I'll add when you're done with the slide, then we'll get to it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
As we mentioned earlier, little typo in St. Catharines. That's okay. That's my fault. We'll help hold it up there. We'll be bringing in equipment there. And the camp fees right now are estimated to be about 2,500. We'll post that cost by mid-March at the latest, and we'll begin those open application period right after that. So we'll start accepting applications on April 1st. Do you want to take that, field that question now, or let me know what the
Yeah,
question
there
is?
was a question on if coxswains will be part of this camp. Will you be admitting coxswains?
I'm not really sure. Mainly it's going to be small boat. We won't be bringing. We may race a 4 at Canadian Henley, but we really want to focus on either pairs or doubles. So currently not necessarily planning it, and we'll sort of make that assessment once we see the number of applications. For example, if we get, mainly PR1 and PR2 applications and very few PR3, we probably would not bring a coxswain. If we get mainly PR3 applications that are, at a high level that we would want to look at, then we might look at bringing in a coxswain. But right now, the focus would be just a small boat training.
And then just to be clear, is that application open now, or it opens on April 1st? It's open now?
That's a good question. I pushed it out a bit just to make sure we could get all those questions in. The application is not fully ready just yet. We'll see in the next slides that we still want athletes to submit their March 2K. So that will be due the end of March. So the applications will open right after that. So not technically fully live yet, but if it gets any earlier, we'll post it, but it'll be posted no later than April 1st.
Okay, and will remain open until when?
It will remain open until, that's a good question. I had that in my notes. I'd say we leave it open until June 1st.
Okay, so April, May, and apply by June 1st. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are we ready to go on to the next slide?
Yep. So I'll talk a little bit about the strength and conditioning camp. The target audience for this one is fixed seat, but we will probably extend that to PR3 as well. Again, this camp will also be limited to 12, and that's kind of at the request of our couple of our host sites. I think that's a great number of athletes that our strength coaches can work with. We'll do strength and conditioning assessments, individual training plans and development, physiological testing, and I think that this is going to be actually one of the most important parts of our overall Pathways program, is getting athletes into an environment. The facility that we're looking to partner with, and we'll have this finalized very quickly, is a facility that is only for athletes with disabilities. So they specialize in para athletic development, mainly in the strength and conditioning space. And we're creating some collaborative partnerships with them to make this camp happen. So I'll not reveal the location of where it's going to be, not because I don't know, but I don't want to sort of, cause a lot of phone calls to one of our partner sites where they're not quite ready and we haven't quite finalized things. But I expect that will be finalized really soon, and I'm really excited for what a facility like this can bring to our level of knowledge about specific strength and conditioning for athletes with disabilities. And I think the athletes got so much out of this 5-day camp that we did at Lake Placid last year, that that we knew we were going to do that again even before that camp was finished. So I'm really excited about that. A very important part. If we plan this one properly, we don't anticipate much of a fee at all for this one. That is also a nice benefit, but we will be announcing all of that and posting that application on a kind of a rolling basis right through September 15th on that camp. Next slide. Okay, so what are the next steps? This is a little bit more like what you'll see within that member portal. Do you want to guide them through this one here, Brett?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said before, when you go to USRowing.org, in the upper right-hand corner, there's the login, and then it asks you to log in either as an individual or as an organization. You'll click individual, and that's where you put in the member number. And if you're like me, your password is hopefully saved within your computer because you have no idea what your password is. Same with your member number. I know I can't rattle mine off. I know some people have the ability to do that. And then when you do that, it'll show you a screen that shows, your waiver, your safe sports status, your membership status. And there's a button below that that says edit profile. And when you do that, it will take you to this section where you can update your athlete metrics, your profile. And this is where the questions, right, Ellen, this is where the para questions are going to appear as well to indicate para eligibility for those. And what that's going to do is then Ellen will has the ability to pull a report from the member portal with everybody who has checked that box. And that becomes our athlete ID pool, which is really cool. And what's awesome about this is that you keep this up to date and you don't have to update your application every time you want to apply for something. You just, when you have a PR, when you grew an inch, yay, you go ahead and put that in here. And then we have that data stored.
Great. Next slide. So other requirements. We do want to have a more robust database of erg scores. So you'll notice on the national team website, or if you go to USRowing and click Team USA, and you'll see a link for national team testing. You'll see that 2K scores are due March 31st. Go ahead and submit there. That's how we sort of all of those scores come directly to me if they if you indicate PR 1, 2, or 3 on that erg score submission. So go ahead and set that as a target coming up. So you've got a little bit of time to prepare. You can use any score that you may get at USRowing indoors or some of the other ergometer races that are coming up. That score is fine. Just submit that by March 31st. That would be great. The next would be to make the steps to get classified as soon as possible. It's 45 days from the time you submit your medical documentation. So I don't want to go too much into the details about classification, but there'll be the FISA medical form that will need to be filled out by a doctor, a physician. And that obviously requires a doctor's appointment, and that obviously takes time to schedule because it's not going to be an urgent care appointment. So basically, the sooner you can get that FISA medical form, it's on the USRowing website in the classification section. You get that filled out and signed by a doctor with supporting documentation such as x-rays or any other tests that have been done to prove that your condition is permanent and verifiable. And then it still takes about 45 days prior to the event in which you want to participate. So that's kind of the minimum window, but I encourage everyone to get that documentation done now. You can put in your request for classification via the form on the USRowing website as well. And once that form comes in, we then will arrange the classification panel, which is 2 people. They're volunteers, a technical and a medical classifier, and that actually takes some time to schedule. So that's why you need to give at minimum 45 days prior to your event. So for example, if you wanted to participate in this development camp and you needed classification, you need to walk yourself back 45 days minimum from July 29th. And that's the point at which you need to submit all of your documentation. So again, it's a slow process. And it does require some back and forth. They may ask for more documentation before they schedule your classification. So the main message there is don't wait to be classified if you want to come to a development camp or any of these other opportunities other than Talent ID. Talent ID, it's fine to come if you're not yet classified, but if you do get invited subsequently, you'll have to get that classification done. Does that make sense? I think that's
so for
pretty
now,
much...
Ellen, just, and I know this is consistent with what Yossi's doing with I know the athletes that he works with. We're going to continue to use the erg score submission form in addition to athletes putting their information into their athlete profile. Yeah.
Correct.
And I just want, because one thing we wanted to make sure that we weren't being disruptive to Olympic selection and the Paralympic selection this summer, which is why for that layer of athlete, we're still using the forms that we've used previously.
Yeah, and I do think that that form should exist, because one of the things that we want to do is when we look at long-term athlete development, we want to look at those scores over time. So updating your profile on all of those ways is important. However, the regular submissions where those things are logged and we then have a sort of longitudinal data about a typical PR1 erg score or a PR1 athlete's development over time, and how that erg score is likely to improve over time. All of this helps us develop better programs when we see an athlete stay in our system over time.
Right.
That might be next slide. Yeah, do we have any other Q&A? I know we have a small audience, so we can tailor these questions directly to you if you'd like. And if we don't have any more questions, that's fine, but just wanted to put that out there if we did have any questions.
Yeah, nothing in there now. We had the two that we answered already. I think for who is, if someone has questions, Ellen, that weren't answered on the webinar, or the website right now can be difficult to navigate to find out the information you're looking for. Who should they reach out to? How should people ask those questions?
Yeah, sure. I'll type basically me, because what we're going to do is once we get the development camp coaches will be hired sometime in the next month. We want to bring them into the process. So once we have those coaches on board, they'll be able to field some direct questions about what we're looking for and things like that. But for the most part, those questions should excuse me, come to me. And then once we see where our staff is going to be allocated across these different opportunities, then they can ask questions directly of those coaches.
Excellent. And I knew if I asked a question and gave some time that someone would come up with a question, and that is what happened. So just wanted to confirm that the scholarship, the United We Row Scholarship Fund, that includes the pre-Canadian Henley Dev Camp.
Yeah, that's the one that right now has the fee associated. Like, we're working toward getting those fees as low as possible for the strength and conditioning camp, and we have an external partner for that. And in the Paralympic year, we have very limited funds from the USOPC to spend on development camp opportunities, but we do have other resources as and we have enough time. There are a number of grant applications, Challenge Athlete Foundation, Kelly Brush. There are a number of other foundations that support opportunities like this for athletes with disabilities. So we would assist people to find other opportunities for funding, but the main United We Row scholarship opportunity would be targeted specifically for the July development camp in Canadian Henley. And I did want to point out that one of the reasons that camp fee is high, it does include all of the race fees and uniform for racing at Canadian Henley. So that may be a bit different from some others, but it's basically all inclusive: hotel, food, uniform, race fees, equipment transport, etc.
Awesome. Great. We don't have any more questions in the chat. I think if it's okay with you, Ellen, I would love to ask one more. And if we don't get any more questions, we can, this may be a good one to end on.
Sure.
You've been in this role for several years now. This isn't your first cycle that we're coming up on with Paris. I would love for you to speak to maybe some of the changes that you're seeing happen, like from comparing when you started being involved with Para to where we are now and where you think we're going.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the things I think about right now, and the success of the PR3 even is a bit different. Like, we've been successful in PR3 before. We've been successful at times in the fixed seat events in terms of getting to the podium. But I feel like this year we actually are the product of a system. We worked really hard with Chris Chase a few years ago, just getting the word out to college coaches and working with college coaches. So that's been a huge change for us. And I think like two things. One, we've pivoted and make sure that when we begin talking with a new para rower, whether they're PR3 or PR1 or whatever, we really engage the coach in the beginning, whether they're a junior or a master, because we recognize that whatever we're learning at the national team level wasn't quite getting out to the club levels where the coaches are doing all of the work to get their athletes ready. So that's been a huge change, and bringing all those coaches into the conversation I hold a monthly coaches call, just opening that, high performance coaches come on in and we have a call and I tell them, it's basically like an open staff meeting. So some of the high performance coaches that are on that call, they've heard that stuff before, but it's an opportunity for people that may have an athlete who they're working with and they want some guidance and where is this athlete fit overall. So that's been huge. I think our sort of outreach to coaches has really changed the way coaches interact with us. And we're at a point now where coaches come to us with referrals like, hey, I think I have an athlete who might be eligible. So that's been super exciting. And it shows up in our peer 3 group that was just selected earlier this month. Many of them are still in college and have a good future ahead of them. And for the PR1 and PR2, we did a big deep dive, just kind of recognizing like we still need to learn a lot more about this equipment setup, how to optimize it for people, how to tell club coaches, give them some guidance about how to set up the athlete rigging wise and seat wise. And I'm really excited because Tom West, our team engineer, has developed some simple things that should be easily built by boatmen and boat people at different clubs. And so something that is going to be really simple that will help improve the performance of the typical PR1 or PR2 club level rower who really need some guidance other than just their erg performance. So I'd say overall, what's been the biggest change is like I feel as though we are actually building a system of communication and shared knowledge, and we're building the knowledge and sharing it out. So I feel like that's been a nice virtuous cycle, I suppose, and it's really helped bring a lot more coaches to our program and coaching talent to our program, quite frankly. So it's going to show up in the applications we've already received for this development camp positions that we posted. Just more and more layers to our program that will help us in the future. I feel that is probably the biggest change, not just the athletes who showed up, but how did they show up? Why did they show up? And it's not just luck. It's part of an ongoing campaign of awareness building and knowledge sharing and helping the athletes see their own long-term plans.
Great. Awesome. And as Yosi says, there are no secrets. There shouldn't be secrets.
That's right.
And yeah. And I think we've entered in a new era of information sharing, which is really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, there are no more
Great.
questions. Ellen, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone lit with before we end?
No, I mean, I just feel as though, we want to make sure that our para programs have very high standards. We understand that many athletes who may be thinking about these opportunities, there may be a big gap between where they are now and where they would want to be. And so it's our job to make sure that we can be honest and upfront with people where we think they are, but we want to create that pathway where they can be very successful at wherever they're at. And for a lot of it, it just means getting out there and racing more and having the confidence to race. We've had some great showing at youth nationals in the para events, but love to get to a point where we have heats and a final, right? That really develops athletes. So a lot of the stuff that we want to do for athlete development can happen once coaches and athletes in their home clubs feel confident to bring their athlete to the line, feel confident in the rigging and the seat setup, feel confident that they have prepared well for whatever local or regional regatta that is. Once we get that going, we really will have taken a huge step forward. So I think, my advice to people is the same when I talk to people at Head of the Charles, like get out there and race. That helps me know who you are. That helps me know, was this regatta accessible enough? Like, was there hindrance to you participating? How do we make this general domestic racing better so that when you come to a national team, you will be sort of along an appropriate pathway ready for international level competition. And that's really the ultimate goal. So the more opportunities to race, the more opportunities we can find you and identify ways we can help you.
Great. All right. Well, great job, Ellen. Great information. We will be posting this recording online. It'll be posted within the next 48 hours. So please spread the word, let people know that this is out there and that information is available. And I'm sure it won't be long before we're having an update, potentially where we're maybe talking more about the strength and conditioning camps and other things that are coming up. But it's great to get at least a bird's eye view of the calendar for the
Yeah,
next several
great.
years.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
All right, we'll say goodnight. Everyone, thank you for joining us on this lovely Tuesday night. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording and wish everyone a pleasant evening. Thank you.